So today is finally the day. I'm gonna take the back of my pickup and I'm gonna start to convert that into a camper. And I'm ultimately gonna share all the steps I take along the way to convert my pickup. I'm gonna try to do this in a very comprehensive manner. I'm gonna show you exactly what I do. Have all the materials behind me, 4 sheets of plywood, very minimal tools. I think this is gonna be a build that pretty much anyone can do. Before we get into this, let's jump over some blueprints I made and I can describe what we're about to do here. So there's gonna be 2 major units to this build. We are gonna have the bed structure on the left and a shelving unit on the right. If we look at the top of this, we are gonna have 2 main storages in the bed structure itself. We're gonna have 1 big chest drawer and another one to segment some smaller things. If we turn it around and look at the shelving unit now, this is gonna have 4 storage compartments. A large storage in the back, another one on the side, and if we flip it over to the front, this is gonna have 2 storage compartments, a smaller shelf and then a pull-out drawer. In addition to the chest storage of the bed structure, we are also gonna have a pull-out drawer that can be opened. So this drawer can essentially be pulled out, and in addition to that, we are gonna have another slider that can be pulled out to used as a working surface, a cutting board, you name it. Those are the plans. Let's jump into it. For this build, I am going to be working with a 2008 GMC. It has a 6-foot 6-inch bed, if anyone's interested. So for starters, we are going to drop in a floor. And this floor, you might be wondering, why do I need a floor? Well, the floor is going to help me create a nice solid surface that I can build off of. It's also going to provide a couple other benefits that I'll mention once we wrap this up, but one of the biggest ones is it's going to flatten out that floor so I don't have to work around these grooves, which just, in anyone who's done a build without a floor, those have to drive you crazy. But so we're going to do this in 2 pieces, and so pretty much the only things you have to worry about is the wheel well. Everything else should be more or less pretty straight. There is some narrowing as we go to the back of the tailgate. And so I jotted that all down. I set my circular saw so it's cutting just below the plywood board. And what this allows me to do is cut on the floor. So you can see I put this foam mat down, and that way I can just do my cuts right here, not worry about having to elevate it and hit the floor. So I am new to woodworking, hence not having many tools. And this is actually my first project. So I learned so much along the way. And you'll see a lot of techniques I'm using that are probably not best practice, but I'm putting this out there just to show everyone, don't let inexperience stop you. You gotta get out and you gotta try to do it. You're not gonna learn just thinking about it all the time. Sometimes you just gotta set it in motion and go for it. And if you fail a few times, so what? It's part of the learning process. So don't let that stop you guys. Just get out there and do it. Okay, so I made it just a bit too wide. I'll measure that out, shave off a little bit from both sides, and then replace this. Perfect. So I got the first floor in. I'm gonna put the second one in. This is the easy part. It's gonna get technical once I start building off of this. So the floor is going to provide 3 major purposes. For one, it provides an easy working surface, so we don't have to deal with these grooves. 2, it kind of provides a safety measure. So there is going to be some moisture in this truck. I have sealed as much as I could, but you know, in case some water gets in there, seep out of the floor onto these grooves on the bottom and flow out of the truck. And lastly, it's gonna hold everything together. It's gonna make this unit one. That done, we're gonna move on to the bed frame. So we're gonna cut out 2 long boards that are the length of the bed, and this is gonna make up the frame of the bed itself. If you guys are finding any use in this video at all, please make sure to go down below and hit that like button. It's free, and I have sunk just a ridiculous amount of time into this video, so it would definitely be appreciated. So with those cut out, we laid them across, got our measurements, and cut those to length. Okay, I just hit the point where I have completely wrapped up the floor. I've also completed the boxes, which you just saw me build. This is essentially eventually going to have a flat top over it, and that's going to be both the bed, and I'm also going to make it into sort of a drawer system. The next step is to use this guy right here. So this is really going to be my lifesaver of this whole operation. This is going to allow my work to be sturdy, quick, and relatively painless as far as making it goes. I'm going to link this down below. So this is basically going to allow me to anchor everything together. This is how a lot of IKEA furniture works. This is going to create a pocket in the side of the board, and so basically I can use a screw that's going to go through that pocket and anchor itself into whatever board is below it. And so it provides a really sturdy support, and in my mind it is just the way to go. If you don't have much experience like I do and you want to have a very sturdy corner, the Craig's pocket hole system is going to be the way to go. This isn't sponsored by them or anything, it's just after doing my research and knowing my skill level, this is going to be a crucial part of the build, and it wasn't that expensive. So I'll link that down below if you guys do want to check this out, and if you're doing this for yourself, good option. Okay, so as far as where the placement of these screws go, I would do them on opposite ends every 6 inches to 10 inches, depending on how much use and sturdiness that particular board needed. So I'm gonna figure out where I'm gonna mount that and clean out the back of the bed, and that's pretty much gonna wrap up day one. I'm happy with the start that we have, and I will see you guys tomorrow, or I will see you in about 1 second when we start day two. Day two was all about construction of what we already have, and that way I have a frame laid out in the bed to build off of. Now we have some pocket hole grooves in the floor itself that we use to attach the two pieces to each other, and off of that we put the framing of the bed unit. I just pretty much needed to decide how long I wanted to make this bed based on how much sleeping space I think I wanted. I decided on about 34 inches for myself. Instead of drawing measurements on the floor itself, I just decided, hey, I'll just use a scrap piece of wood, cut a measurement log, and then when I put everything in the truck, I can pretty much just align it up using this board. So, relatively simple method, got those installed. The next thing that we need to do is we are going to build some dividing spaces in here, because this is going to be a storage compartment. So I cut out one, made sure it fit, used that to draw out a bunch of others. And then sanded those so they were nice and flat using a belt sander. And after that, those were ready to be installed. After putting some pocket holes in all of them, we can just go ahead and put those in. And of course, in this section of the build, we are going to be focused on building this awesome drawer system. And this drawer system is going to have one large pullout that's going to have a huge chest storage within it. But below that, we're also going to have this pullout, and that's going to act as an extra working surface, a cutting board, you name it. I've found so many uses for this. Also in this video, we're going to cover a couple more things. We are going to build some more support for the bed structure. And lastly, we are going to make a topper for our bed and add a couple large chest storages within it. So let's jump right into the video and see how we did this. So the drawer system was probably one of the harder things that I had to do. So when you guys take this on yourself, of course, you're all going to have different measurements for the drawer that you want to accomplish. And one of the easier ways that I found to do this was just to visit a website. And once you're on that page, it's so simple. So you're just going to put in what height, width, and depth of your drawer system that you want to make. put in them with your material. I used 3/4 of an inch plywood. And since we're using that Craig pocket hole drill system, we're gonna want these joints to be butt joints. Plug that in and the website spits out all of the cuts that you need to make. So it's just a really easy system. You don't have to think about it a whole lot, and you have exactly what you need to do. With that accomplished, I set out to rough cut everything to size and get ready to build this drawer. Now don't forget, because we are making an extra slide out from this drawer system, you are going to want to cut a little extra space off of the face measurement that that website spit out for you. And that way we're going to have some room to install some guides as well as that pull-out board itself. Now with that done, we are going to drill some pocket holes in this, get it all together, and move on to the next step. So there we go, my very first drawer and my very first little pull-out cutting board slash cooking surface that I'm going to use a lot for catch and cooks. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, and it's going to be a great surface to use while I'm cooking. As far as this goes, I may put a flat surface on the top just by recessing these sides a bit and having something that can kind of slide over it. That way I can set things here while I'm cooking, maybe put some ingredients up there and whatnot. But yeah, this worked out better than I expected. So the hardest part of all this for me was installing it. My initial plan was to put in 4 drawer slides, but I struggled to line these up properly and decided that that was not the way to go. So I ended up putting 2 in, and these are rated for 100 pounds. And so I installed that and it worked perfectly fine, and I've had it like this for over a year now. So here's the results. I am so happy with how this turned out, and of course you guys can build this in any dimension that you want. You can add 2 sliders, you could add a slider off of the side, get creative with it. So this whole structure is going to be held in by friction. So we have an exact cut of the floor that's going to help hold it in place, of course the weight of everything that's holding it down. And now we're going to move on and do some supports off to the side that are going to help prevent it from wiggling, and it's also going to just help hold it in place a little more. What I did is I just cut out some cardboard, made that an exact cut, and then I could take that back, cut out an exact piece of plywood to fit it perfectly. Now of course if you have a jigsaw, that's definitely what you're going to want to use for this cut. But I didn't, so I used a combination of a saw along with a Dremel and a sander to make sure that it was a perfect fit. So yeah, let's see if this fits, and if it doesn't, I'm going to keep sanding the dimensions till they do. Fits like a glove. That is probably the most accurate cut I've made this whole time. Alright, so I got the struts all made out, or the support beams, and now I'm just going to throw them in. Well, that's done. So now with those, I can basically just finish the top platform, and this whole thing will be, at least the bed portion will be wrapped up. Make a couple drawers, or not drawers, but like chests where I'm sitting, and then call it good for now. And I got the measurements from the back of my truck. See, I wrote it down. So it's going to be 73 3/4 by 43 3/4. So this is basically the last major cut I need to make for that side of the truck. So I'm just going to drop that pallet down, rough cut it to size, and then I'm going to go in and I don't know if I'm going to trace it out or maybe line it up and get a good idea of what sections I need to cut out. The final top of the bed structure is cut out to rough shape. So I'm just going to show you guys what I'm going to do next. I do have to fix some leaks, so temporarily I just have a tarp over it because the next few days it's going to be mixing of snow like it is now into rain. It's really not that big a deal. A couple gaskets in here. They're a little bit old. I got another one on that back window. But anyway, I just wanted to go over the system I'm using to mark out the gaps and what I need to cut out and what I can leave. Just because I had no idea what I was doing at first, but I kind of like this system I just started using. So basically what I do is I just marked out on my ruler exactly where the back of this meets this lip. And then basically I go along and just probe the back until I find where this line has started to come onto the board, at which case I will just mark that out as a spot I need to cut. So now, if you had a jigsaw, you could just basically cut along this line, make it really quick and simple. Unfortunately, that process is going to take me a bit longer, but it doesn't really matter. It's going to happen in the end, and there's always a way. So I'm going to get started on that, and I'll show you guys how it worked out when I'm done. There we have it. So it fit pretty great. We have a little bit of overlap that I will trim off, but other than that, I mean, everything fits in really, really great. Pretty tight fit all throughout. Okay, top's fixed, trimmed up the edges. Eventually I'll screw it down, but it sits pretty flush. So now that we have the top finished, there is one last thing I want to do today. If you look at it this way, so this would be the front. This is our drawer system. This, I have sketched out what is going to be basically an opening chest, and then here as well. These are going to open up essentially, if that makes sense, but and there we go. So they work perfectly. We're able to access these absolutely giant storages in the bottom. The last suggestion I would make is add some drawer supports to this. So that way when you open it up, it's going to stay open. And you don't have to hold it open with one hand. Especially once you have the mattress on top of that. It becomes more of a pain. Trust me. Today we are going to make a whole new structure to this build, and it's going to kind of be like a cabinet. So let me just get rid of everything else here so we can focus on the cabinet. So this cabinet's going to be a bit slimmer than the bed because I do want that open floor. This is going to allow me to access these two ports of the cabinet. So we're going to have a storage in the back of it, and we're also going to have a long storage along the side. Now flipping over to the front, there's going to be two different storages here. There's going to be a cabinet that I can open, and below that is going to be a small drawer. This is a very useful thing to have in the truck, and let's jump into how I constructed it. For starters, we need to make the backboard, and to do that, we have to cut around the wheel well to maximize our space usage. So what I did is I took a piece of cardboard, cut around the wheel well so I had an exact dimension of what it was, traced that onto the board, and then simply cut it out so it was a perfect fit. Took that board and then I made a top to it as well. Now, just like the bed structure, I used a similar method to cut out all the different dimensions so this would slide onto the truck perfectly. And then I screwed those in place to make them one. So I'll take that out of the truck and use it as the framing to build everything else off of. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut out all the boards that we need, and we are going to segment each storage compartment, so this is going to be easier to visualize. Did my measurements, cut those out, and this is kind of what we started with, where we have these two divisions of the side storages, and now I just need one more right in the middle here. So cut that out, installed it, and this is kind of what we're looking at. It looks like a TV stand in a sense, and this is missing the front section, so I'm going to cut that out next, but I just want to give you an idea of what these storage compartments look like on the inside. And you can see how we built around that wheel well, so we're not losing very much space here. Next, let's get going on this front storage. So I just went over to that website that I mentioned in the second video, got the dimensions I needed for the bottom drawer, found some scrap wood that I could use, and then cut that into shape, and we were ready to build that box. I also cut out the front of the cabinet, so I'm just going to put that in right here, and we're going to have it on hinges, so I can just swing it open. Let's move on. Let's cut out that front panel, and for this one, it's a little unique, so I have to cut out windows within this front face itself. And the way I went about doing this, because I don't have a jigsaw, is I drilled 1-inch holes in the corners of them. And then I took my circular saw and I just eased it onto that line and then cut what I could out without going too far. Basically, I just tried to connect these dots. And so I did that for all of them, finished it up with a saw, and this is the finished product. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out using the tools that I did. But we can see these edges are extremely rough, so we need to fix that up. And of course, the way you go about doing that is just sand like crazy. So you definitely want to make sure you sand those over well. And in the end, they turned out great. They're smooth to the touch. There, so the last things we need to do is install that cabinet. Drill some holes for access. And that is gonna complete it. The only thing we'd have to do now is screw in our face, but we are gonna do that very last. And move on to the next day, where we're gonna do some standing. So today is finally the day that I am going to stain this project. Yesterday I did, oh, heater's turning on. Hold on. So yesterday I did one of the last major cuts I needed to do. We have the cabinet all finished up, and this is what I plan to stain today. Here's what I selected to use. We have a pre-stain, a wood finish. I decided on natural because I want to keep this structure light. Now personally, I like dark furniture. I think it looks better, but the truck cap is such a closed space that we want to let light in. So having a brighter wood is gonna basically make the whole inside of that truck a little bit brighter. And so that's what I was going for here. And then of course, pre-stain and wood finish, they're not protecting it. So we do need some sort of coating over the top of it. I decided to use spray lacquer, which is really easy to use, but it's not cheap. I think I used 4 or 5 cans of this, and they're like 10 bucks a piece. So we gotta start off with 2 things. First off, we gotta clean this place, and second, we have to sand. Actually, let's reverse that. Let's sand and then clean up the place.
Because there's so much snow right now, I'm actually going to try to do this inside. That way I can have the heater on in the back to keep it at 60, which is going to help these stains dry. Get that stain on there.
For starters, we're going to put 1 coat of pre-stain down, and then after that dries, we're going to follow it up with 2 coats of natural stain. I just followed the directions on the back based on dry times, and I try to do this in a warm environment, so I'm wearing that gas mask so I can keep the garage door shut and we can keep things at 60, but I also have to do everything in the back of the truck. That's a little more difficult. The drying time definitely was much longer, so I would do that at different increments.
Alright, I got the first 2 coats on. Take that off for a minute. I got that 1 pre-coat and then 1 coat of natural wood stain. I really like the look of it. It didn't darken it too much. It just kind of brought out some definition in it. I'm gonna let this dry and then we're gonna go over the top with some lacquer. Okay, so today is officially, or at least hopefully officially, going to be the last day of this build. Now I've allowed the stain I put on to cure for about 24 hours. The next step is going to be to put a protectant sealant on there, and I decided to use lacquer. Now what I'm going to do is I have 4 cans of lacquer. I am going to start at the beginning surface and spray about 6 to 8 inches away until I finish every surface that I have, and at which point I'm going to go right back to the start, add a second coat, and do that till I run out of my 4 cans. Now, maybe that's not going to be enough coats that I'm looking for, but I can go back later, apply more lacquer. Not a big deal. So, with that said, let's get started. In the end, I ended up putting about 4 to 5 coats over every surface. I started to run out, so I opted to put that 5th coat on surfaces I was going to use the most, such as the floor that I'll be walking on all the time. But here's the final product. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It kept it nice and light, but darkened it just a little bit and brought out that definition of the wood. It wasn't really super glossy, but it did reflect a little bit of light, and I kind of liked it actually. So I was happy with that selection. Of course, you could do all kinds of stuff with this. You know, you don't have to use natural. If you want that darker look, go for it. Man, what a build it's been. I guess I'm just gonna finish it up. I got a couple holes to drill and I'm going to screw in this unit right here.
This is our completed truck cap camper build. If you guys want to see a more detailed look at the finished product once I get a mattress in there and it's a little more lived in, then you can go check out this video right here where I did an in-depth review, and hit that like button if you enjoyed this series. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you out there in the truck cap camper.